My son's friend staying with us. This morning, I tried to wake both of them up, but the girl didn't wake up. We tried to wake her up. I don't know what it is.
When you say you can't wake her up, what, is she breathing?
No, not that we could. I don't know.
Right. Well, we need to find out. We need to find out. Are you on a phone that you can take up to her?
Sorry?
Are you on a telephone that you can take up to her?
Yes.
Are you near her now?
Yes.
Right. I need you to check for me. Is she conscious and breathing? If you call her name or just shake her arm, does it rouse her?
No.
Right, now, is she breathing?
No, I don't think she is.
Right, how old is she?
She is 17.
In 2011, a teenage girl was found dead in bed in Dorset, southwest England. By first appearances, it seemed like this was nothing more than a tragic accident. However, it would soon be discovered that just days earlier, the teenage girl had complained about having a stalker. Investigators would now need to uncover if something much more sinister had actually transpired. Emily Longley was a 17-year-old girl originally from West London. Her family then immigrated to New Zealand when Emily was just a girl, where she had attended Wesleyan Girls High School and Takapuna Grammar before moving to Bournemouth, Dorset, in England in 2010, where she lived in a bungalow on Dingle Road with her grandparents, Ronald and Zosha. Here, she took up a job at the clothing store Topshop and started studying at Brockenhurst College. Emily had big ambitions to one day become a model, having already modeled for Creme magazine. She and her best friend, Hannah Ogilvie, had dreams of moving to the United States, where Emily would model while Hannah styled her hair, or they would simply work together at a supermarket and then sleep in a van. While Emily had moved away from New Zealand, she always made sure to make time for her friends back home, mostly over Skype. Her best friend, Hannah, said, "She's such a crazy, wild person." Around 9:55 a.m. on the 7th of May 2011, police in Dorset were alerted to a home on Queenswood Avenue. That morning, Emily had been found dead in bed. Investigators described her death as undetermined. They would be conducting an autopsy as well as a toxicology test to try and determine how exactly Emily had died. Emily's parents, Mark and Caroline, were still in New Zealand at the time and were flying over to England to be with their daughter. Mark said, "She was a beautiful girl and so full of life. It's so tragic." An inquest into Emily's death was ordered, with Detective Inspector Neil Devoto, who was leading the investigation, appealing for information. He asked for anybody who may have witnessed something suspicious or out of the ordinary, either on the Friday night or Saturday morning, to please get in contact. He also revealed that a 19-year-old man had been helping officers with their inquiries. He had been arrested but released without charge. This 19-year-old man would be identified as Elliot Turner, Emily's on and off again boyfriend. It was at Elliot's family home in the affluent suburb of Queen's Park where Emily was found deceased in bed, so naturally, investigators wanted to speak to him. Elliot had lived at home with his younger brother, Aaron, his father, Lee, and his mother, Anita. One of the first things investigators wanted to do was retrace Emily's movements. They learned that she had been out with her friends on Thursday and Friday, and on Friday night she'd gone out with her friends for cocktails. But investigators were wanting to piece together what happened between this and when she was found dead in Elliot's bed the following morning. While Emily was only 17 years old, she had often used a fake ID to go out with her friends or with Elliot. Shortly before Emily was found dead, she and Elliot had broken up. Elliot worked as a jewelry buyer for a local store. As soon as it was public knowledge that Emily had been out with friends for the previous 2 nights, rumors began to circulate that she had died of a drug and alcohol overdose. Many began to speculate that Emily had taken drugs while out with her friends on the Friday night and then died at some point after she arrived at Elliot's home. Officer Devoto would once again appeal to the public for information. He said that he would particularly like to speak with people who had seen Emily the night before she died. He also asked if anybody knew if Emily had taken any drugs on the night of her death, to please let them know what she had taken. Elliot had remained very tight-lipped, at least publicly, since the death of Emily. However, 10 days after Emily died, Elliot posted a photograph of him and Emily kissing and drinking wine, claiming that it was taken the night she died. Many people online were speculating that Elliot was somehow involved in Emily's death. His friends all rallied around him and offered their support. One friend, Sarah Dickinson, said, "People spread gossip because their own lives are too boring to talk about. The people who truly matter know it's all lies, and you're a sweetheart and kind and would never do anything of this sort." By June, Emily's body still hadn't been released from the medical examiner's office, and her cause of death had still not been uncovered. Her father, Mark, said to Fairfax Media that the delay was frustrating, but he respected the investigation. It would soon be revealed that there were two teenagers who were seen acting suspiciously on the night that Emily died. According to witnesses, they had seen the two teenagers in a wooded area almost directly across from the home where Elliot lived with his family. Investigators would appeal to the public for more information about the two teenagers and ask them to come forward to help in the inquiries. Just the day after the appeal for information about the two teenagers was put out, Emily's toxicology report would come back negative, putting to rest any rumors that Emily's death was somehow linked to alcohol or drugs. Meanwhile, Elliot would do an interview with the New Zealand Herald, during which he claimed that he was preparing to propose to Emily. He even claimed that Emily was pregnant, had been taking drugs, and was unwell. He said, "Imagine waking up to your girlfriend to find her dead. I heard she had ill health, but how can you honestly predict that a girl can pass away at 17? It was such a shock." He said that since Emily died, things had been really tough for him, and he'd been taking antidepressants. According to Elliot, he had put a deposit on an engagement ring worth more than $6,000 and was going to propose at the Ritz. Elliot complained that he'd been questioned for hours by police. They asked whether I had a gun, was I a violent person, and we hear you're the leader of a gang. The gang in question was in reference to Elliot and his close group of friends who dubbed themselves the Firm. According to Elliot, he and his friends were not violent and did not deal in drugs. Elliot came across as a bit of a loser in the interview, even explaining to the interviewer that he wasn't wearing his usual jewelry because police had confiscated it. He bragged about sleeping with models and beauty queens, spending hundreds on premium vodka, using drugs, and having relationships with reality TV stars. He even bragged about how wealthy his family was. The interview took place in a bar, and at one point the barman told him there was a phone call for him. He said to the interviewer, "Literally every second someone keeps coming in the door and shaking my hand. It's ridiculous, even the barman." He made out in the interview like he was a serial dater, never settling down until he met Emily, before stating that he couldn't totally give up the party lifestyle he had become accustomed to. He bragged that at one point his grandparents paid $30,000 for a 28-day stint in the celebrity rehab facility, the Priory, for his cocaine use. When the interview ended, Elliot picked his favorite photographs of himself to use in the interview. Emily's father, Mark, would lambast Elliot's claims, stating that they were nothing more than a fantasy. He said, "There's no way that she would have married him." As a father, to hear Elliot talk about how difficult it is for him now just disgusts me. Mark said that 2 months into Emily's relationship with Elliot, she had briefly returned to New Zealand, where she told her family she had been trying to end her relationship with Elliot. Mark said that Elliot had pursued Emily for 2 or 3 months, and after she returned home to Britain, she ended the relationship with Elliot twice, revealing that the final time she ended the relationship with him was on the night that she died. He revealed that Emily had texted her mother, Caroline, and told her that she had ended the relationship. He went on to state that since Emily's death, Elliot had been out clubbing with other women and certainly hadn't been portraying himself as the heartbroken boyfriend. Just the following day, there was a massive breakthrough in the case when it was announced that Elliot had been arrested and charged with Emily's murder, as well as perverting the course of justice. Even more unexpectedly, his own parents, Lee and Anita, were also charged with perverting the course of justice. With the new developments, Mark stated that he was relieved, but at the same time it, of course, did not make Emily's death any easier. Lee and Anita would appear in court, where it was alleged that they had failed to phone emergency services and had removed and destroyed evidence leading to Emily's death. They were both bailed and ordered to appear in court on the 30th of September, along with Elliot. Finally, in August, Emily's body was returned home to New Zealand. Her family had to pay the cost. While Emily had grown up in New Zealand, the government wouldn't assist in bringing her home because she wasn't a citizen. In early September, a memorial was held at St. Joseph's Catholic Church. Hundreds of mourners filed into the church where her loved ones shared some of their fondest memories. Emily was painted as a fun and lively teenager with an infectious laugh. Mark would state that it was about remembering and celebrating Emily's life. He said before the crowd, "It's like the sun has gone out. Emily was warmth, and where there was a light, there is now a huge black hole." Afterwards, Emily's body was taken to Schnapper Rock Crematorium for a private ceremony. Before the month came to an end, Elliot appeared in court, where he pleaded not guilty to the murder of Emily, as well as to the charge of perverting the course of justice. His parents, Lee and Anita, also pleaded not guilty to the charge of perverting the course of justice. This meant that they would be standing trial on those charges. It would be revealed that secret video and audio recordings would be the cornerstone of the case against Elliot and his parents. In April of 2012, the murder trial of Elliot Turner began. Up until this moment, it still wasn't exactly known how Emily had died and what role Elliot allegedly had in her death. The opening statements would focus on the secret recordings captured from inside the Turner home. According to the prosecution, Elliot was a violent and jealous person and believed that Emily had been unfaithful to him. They put forward the theory that Elliot had strangled Emily to death in bed and then enlisted his parents to help cover the murder up. It was revealed that Elliot told police that Emily had argued with him the night before she was found dead, attacked him, and then when he woke up in the morning, he found her dead in bed. However, weeks after the murder, police had bugged the family's home and recovered an audio recording. It captured Lee stating, "Elliot effing strangled her." It also captured Lee and Anita talking about destroying a letter that Elliot had written, with Lee stating, "I cannot tell the police about the letter I destroyed by bleach saying Elliot killed her, but he didn't mean it." He then said, "We have perverted the course of justice by destroying evidence," and it was then heard saying that they were right to do it to cover for their son. At one point, Elliot asks his parents to confirm that the letter had been destroyed. In fact, the secret recording even captured Elliot confessing to the murder. Prosecutor Tim Moosley told the jury that Emily and Elliot had a short and volatile relationship, which included Elliot being violent towards Emily even in front of his and her friends, even stating on several occasions that he would kill her. He said, "However short their relationship was during it, Elliot Turner showed himself to be threatening, aggressive, violent, controlling, and possessive towards Emily Longley. These aspects of Elliot Turner became more and more obsessive and culminated in killing Emily Longley in his bedroom in the middle of the night." He then told the jury that there was evidence that Emily had been strangled, including hemorrhaging under the eyes, which was consistent with neck compression. Elliot had become increasingly jealous when Emily returned from her trip to New Zealand and speculated that she had been unfaithful. He had become enraged when he saw a photograph of Emily with men in a car while in New Zealand. According to Prosecutor Moosley, Elliot hated when Emily wore clothes that he felt were revealing and had even called her a whore on the night that she was killed. He stated that in the past, Elliot had threatened to kill Emily and joked about killing her with a lump hammer, and even practiced how to strangle her with his friend Tom Crew, who would testify later in court. During the relationship, Elliot and Emily would argue, and then make up again several times between April and May. On one occasion, Elliot had brought her flowers and chocolates, but literally minutes later, she texted him, "Hit me with a mallet, do whatever you want to me. I will never get back with you. I actually hate you." By this message, it appeared as though Elliot had threatened Emily with a mallet. At one stage, Emily and Elliot went to the Isle of Man, and Emily had written down on a piece of paper, "I love you. Don't say you will kill me. Stop talking about your ex-girlfriend, and stop being so constantly aggressive. Be more cool because that's much more hot." On another occasion, just weeks before Emily's death, Elliot told friends that he killed Emily with a hammer in a car park, but then said that he was joking. The first witness to be called to testify would be 18-year-old Tom Crow, who was a friend of Elliot. He told the courtroom that in the days leading up to Emily's murder, he had met with Elliot. He described him as wound up because he thought that Emily had been seeing other men. He told the courtroom that Elliot had said, "Oh yeah, she's pushed me this time. How should I do it, Tom? How should I kill Emily?" He said that Elliot came up with some ideas of how to kill Emily, including joining her in the bath, dousing her with petrol and setting her on fire, or forcing her to take a drug overdose. In fact, he revealed that Elliot had practiced strangling him, which had caused him to panic. He said that Elliot was much more muscular because he drank protein shakes and went to the gym. According to Tom, in the hours leading up to Emily's murder, Elliot had taken her phone off her and was reading her text messages and swearing profusely. That night, when they returned to Elliot's home, Elliot and Emily fought outside. He told the jury that Emily had told Elliot that she hated him and tried to lock him out of his home before he got inside and shut the door. He claimed that he was scared and shocked by what had transpired and felt relief to just leave the environment. He claimed that he was scared for Emily's well-being, yet he didn't think to call for help, especially considering the fact that Elliot had openly spoken about wanting to kill her just days prior. Testimony would then be heard from another friend of Elliot, Oliver George. Oliver said that on the evening of the 6th of May, he had been with Emily and Elliot. He had picked them up and drove them to Cafe Shore. He said that the atmosphere between the two was awkward and said that they argued a lot. He told the courtroom how earlier that day he had received a text message from Elliot telling him that Emily was going to stay at his house because he needed to repair his troubled relationship. He said that in the car on the way to Cafe Shore, Elliot had become angry by the way that Emily was dressed. He told the courtroom, he said she looked like a whore and shouldn't dress like that because it attracts boys. He said that later on that night, Elliot told him that Emily had thrown a drink in his face and then left to go to another bar with her friend. 18-year-old Harry Hawkins, who was Elliot's neighbor, would then tell the jury that in the early morning hours of the 7th of May, he had seen a row between Emily and Elliot outside Elliot's home. At the time, Tom, who testified earlier, was present. He said that after Emily and Elliot went inside his home, Tom came over to him. He stated, "He told me what was going to happen tonight, and I must not repeat it in the morning." Tom Crow said that Elliot was going to kill her. He said it in a very serious tone. According to Harry, he didn't believe that Elliot was going to kill Emily, but said he speculated that he may hit her or hurt her. He described Elliot to the jury as a very cocky person who often bragged and acted like a tough guy. The jury would then hear from Carla Simmons, a friend of Emily. She told the jury how Elliot described the morning that Emily was found dead. She said he claimed that he had woken up that morning to find Emily cold and gray. She said that as he described the morning, he talked very quickly and paced up and down. She stated to the jury, he said he went to grab her arm and she was cold and gray. He said he presumed that she had just passed out. Then he realized that was not normal, so he started to shake her and try to wake her up. The court would soon learn that Emily wasn't the only person that Elliot had obsessed over and threatened violence against. According to his friend, Liam Costello, he had been obsessed with other girlfriends. He said that on one occasion, Elliot had nearly tried to break into an ex-girlfriend's home and told him that if she was inside the home, he was going to suffocate her with a pillow. On week 2 of the trial, the jury would hear from medical experts. Pathologist Dr. Hugh White had performed Emily's autopsy and testified that he thought it was possible that Emily had been strangled, but he couldn't determine for sure because there were no external or internal injuries. He said that he had found petechial hemorrhages in both of her eyelids and one in the inner surface of her upper lip. These are little spots of blood that are caused by rising blood pressure in the head. They are a common sign of strangulation and pressure to the chest. He proposed that the most likely method of asphyxiation was a sleeper hold. When investigators came to arrest Elliot, his bags were packed, and he had his passport in his pocket. He said, "I never meant to harm her. I just defended myself." But then when he was taken to be interviewed, he refused to speak any further. When questioned, he simply responded, "No comment, to every single question. Elliot had been a suspect from the very beginning, and investigators actually bugged the Turner house, as mentioned earlier. These covert recordings were played out during the trial, and they were certainly quite damning. Elliot and his parents, Lee and Anita, could be heard discussing what they were going to tell the police about the events surrounding Emily's death. Elliot could be heard describing how he went nuts and psycho, adding, "A side of me I never imagined. I was actually thinking I was insane, just like violent thoughts in my head for weeks before," adding, "No girl has ever pushed me that far, taunted me, and fucking got to my core." It would also be revealed during the trial that when Elliot's computer was seized, there were search terms for death by strangulation and how to get out of being charged for murder. During the recordings, Elliot mentioned this, and seemingly, the penny dropped that he wasn't going to get away with Emily's murder. There was also a recording between Elliot and his parents wherein they discussed what they should say about the half-hour delay between Anita calling her husband at work and making the 999 call. Elliot said, "That looks so guilty, but to get out of that would be completely believable." "You're annoyed with Elliot because he's late again," Anita responded. "But I didn't say that." To which Elliot replied, "No, you want to say something like that. What we'll do, we'll write this time for you, for what you're going to say." It was evident that Anita had taken so long to call 999 because the family was coming up with a phony story. When Anita was questioned about this, and this theory was presented, she replied, "That's disgusting." She said in the past she had struggled waking Emily up because she had drunk too much the night before, but when Emily was found, she was gray and cold to the touch. It was clear that she was dead, so this excuse didn't really sit well with investigators. There was a conversation between Anita and Lee when Lee said, Elliot wrote the confession note and knew there was no point in calling an ambulance because Emily had already been dead for 5 or 6 hours. Seemingly in disbelief, Anita replied, "He didn't know," to which Lee said, "What we did was destroy vital evidence. That was a confession." Still seemingly in disbelief, Anita said, "No, he didn't say that." And Lee replied with, "Stop denying it. He strangled her." In addition to destroying Elliot's confession, his parents had also gotten rid of a jacket from inside Elliot's bedroom. Presumably, the jacket had some kind of evidence relating to Emily's murder. Towards the end of the second week of the trial, Elliot took to the witness stand. He spoke about the night he met Emily, stating that they instantly clicked. He denied witness testimony that he had held Emily against a wall by the throat and had become obsessive while on nights out with friends. However, he did admit that he had told her he would kill her probably at least 10 or 15 times, adding, "I didn't literally mean that." He then went on to the night of Emily's murder and said that they had argued. He said he questioned why she had told friends she was single and why she was speaking to other men, stating, "Basically, the conversation took a dive." He claimed it was a typical argument with both of them swearing at each other in his bedroom, but then he admitted that he had grabbed Emily quite hard around the neck during the argument. He then said he pushed Emily onto the bed and held his hand on her neck for what he claimed was around 5 or 6 seconds. Like he had claimed before to the paramedic, he once again claimed that Emily had kicked and punched him. He alleged that he put his hand around her neck to try and calm her down, not because he was trying to harm or kill her. He said that he then stormed out of the bedroom and sat in the lounge for 15 minutes before writing a letter to his mother and posting it under her bedroom door. According to Elliot, he then went to bed and slept beside Emily before waking up to find that she was dead. Elliot was seemingly claiming self-defense. Under cross-examination by Prosecutor Mosley, he put it to Elliot that he had never expressed a single word of sadness over Emily's death, asking, "What words have you ever expressed about Emily's death?" Elliot responded, "Obviously, I'm very sad, but I cannot break down here. I have to answer your questions." Speaking of the morning, he discovered Emily dead in bed. Elliot said he thought something was wrong when he touched her cold cheek at around 8:45 a.m. However, paramedics were not called until an hour later. When Prosecutor Mosley asked him why there had been such a long delay, Elliot claimed he wasn't aware that Emily was dead. Prosecutor Mosley replied, "It would be obvious to anyone that she was dead." Elliot replied, "No, I'm not a paramedic. I've never seen a person unconscious. I've never done first aid. She was cold. I woke Mom up. She came and shook Emily and tried to wake her up." From the witness stand, Elliot admitted that he had tried to pervert the course of justice. He pleaded guilty to an amended charge of attempting to make his mother, Anita, change her story. The recording between Elliot and his mother was also played out, during which Anita told Elliot to claim he had acted in self-defense. She said, "She kicked you and kicked you. Even though she is slim, she does kickboxing. It was self-defense. Stick with it." Elliot can then be heard saying, "I was always the one who looked like the bad guy, and she caused it. That girl has ruined my life." Anita agreed. Afterward, the judge, Mrs. Justice Dobbs, provided a closing speech. She asked the jury to put aside any prejudice or sympathy, stating, "A cool head is called for." The jury was sent away to deliberate. They would ultimately find Elliot Turner guilty of the murder of Emily Longley, as well as find his parents guilty of perverting the course of justice. The sentencing phase was to follow. He would be handed a life sentence with a minimum of 16 years. Anita and Lee would be sentenced to 27 months in jail and were ordered to serve at least half of that sentence. Elliot Turner had lived a life of privilege, and if he and his parents had gotten their way, he would have gotten away with murder. Thankfully, however, the covert recordings sealed the family's fate and showed their true characters. Elliot had always gotten what he wanted in life, enabled by his parents. But when it soon became apparent to Elliot that Emily was truly leaving him, he couldn't control his anger, his jealousy, and his possessiveness.